Okay, hi everyone, and yeah, let's have a little look at this. Yeah, welcome to the webinar. We're going to be going over quite a few topics in the next hour. Uh, if you do have any questions, yeah, just type them in. I'll try and get to them as I can, or Brian will also answer the ones that he can. But if there's something you want to see, then we'll try and get to that at the end of the webinar as well. So what we're going to be looking at is obviously we can't look at all of the effects that we can start working with Sapphire and Resolve. There are actually just too many of them. So what I want to show you instead in the next hour is just some of the ways that I work with it to try and help speed up my own personal workflow. Um, so I've been working with Resolve for actually quite a lot of years now, and I've seen it grow from just being a sort of a very, very powerful color grading tool into something that now people are using for doing editing and color grading and titles and effects and basically, sometimes the whole package. So one of the things that they've been able to do this with is by adding in OFX support. And there's a few different ways that we can start to add effects in. And I'm just going to come out into I'm in my color room at the moment, and I'm just going to open up the Open Effects tab in the top right-hand corner. So you can see that with 14, you've got a whole new, well, actually new Resolve effects coming in as well. And this will give you quite a few that we didn't have before. But we've got basic things like glows and flares and rays. And let's have a little look at this. So this is the Resolve glow. So I'm going to put that on. Let's find another little frame where we can see this a little bit more. So once we've put on our effect, we see the little effects down at the bottom there. I'm just going to try and make this as glowy as possible. So I'm going to really crank the brightness up as much as I can, and maybe turn the composite mode to add here. So this is my Resolve glow. This is pretty much where we're at. We're quite glowy. I'd say that's pretty glowy. Do a before and after, but sometimes you need a little bit more glow, and you need a little bit more control. And this is where we can sort of come down. Instead of using the Resolve glow, I'm actually going to type in at the top here. I'm just going to type in glow, and I'm going to use my Sapphire S glow and bring that over the top. And again, bring the threshold down, all the way down, just so you can start to see sort of how much more glowy we can get. And actually, unlike the Resolve Zone glow, we're not sort of limited by sort of the slider here. We can actually just drag into here. We can get things going even more extreme. So let's come over here somewhere. Let's take our glow width down just a wee bit, maybe bring that up to about 2, or maybe just a little bit less than that. There we go. Cool. So if I do a little before and after, so there's the Resolve glow, and there's the Sapphire glow. We can start to get a lot more sort of natural glowiness to these lights. So we've got a lot more sort of a natural flare, natural halo going on. And of course, we can start to add in some more effects as well. So actually, I will add in another node just before my glow, just so we can see something a little bit different here. And I'm just going to have a little search for another filter called streaks. And we'll put that over the top. And we'll turn off our glow so we can see what the streaks are doing. There we go. So all of the filters also have the Open Effects overlay on top, so we can sort of be coming in and actually let's plug that in. Wonder why that wasn't working. Let's plug that in properly. There we go. There we go. Yeah. So we can interactively start to sort of work around with our with our effect directly within the viewer. So this gives you a lot more sort of flexibility about, you know, what you actually want to get done. So I'm not really sort of trying to do anything amazingly clever with this particular effect, more to just sort of add in, that's a little bit too harsh now. Yeah, it's more sort of just to add in a little bit of bite just to our little lights. There we go. So it's very easy just to come in, and you can see that's playing back, not at 25 frames per second. We're getting 18 frames a second on just a standard, quite simple, straightforward little desktop machine here. So nothing too crazily overpowered at all. So we're getting some decent speeds. So it really is, you know, really quite simple just to actually come in and start to add in lots of effects. But when it comes to our other things, I try and like to keep a lot of this stuff looking fairly natural, because I don't want to sort of, with a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, the idea isn't to have it sort of shouting out, you know, I'm making a really huge effect. It's actually just to sort of enhance the footage that I've got. So just this one, let's just add a little S-curve in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show another of the resolve effects right now. I'm just going to have a look at the light again, just use a little lens flare. And let's drag that over. You can see the resolve lens flare also has the UI available to us, and it also has a number of presets sort of coming in. Late afternoon, lovely. So we've got a few little presets to work with, or we can come in and also sort of start to work with the individual elements as well. Now, designing a lens flare, designing a nice looking lens flare from scratch is actually a lot of hard work. So finding something that looks around about right for what you want to do, and then start to customize that up, is actually a lot more, a lot better use of your time, really. But I find that a lot of the sort of pull down stuff here just takes quite a lot of time. It's a little bit fiddly, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to come back to my library, and instead of using the resolve lens flare, I'm actually going to come down, and instead of doing the big scroll, I'll just come and use the Sapphire lighting lens flare and just drag it over the top. There we go. So got a little default lens flare there, and as well as having a couple of hundred different filters to work with, or different effects, I should say, you've also got thousands of different presets, and having access to this preset is actually a sort of real sort of lifesaver, because it means that you don't have to start to work from scratch on every single effect that you want to choose. So what I can do here is I've got a huge list of presets that I can just sort of scroll through, and you can sort of see it as it would look on your footage as well. You can also start to filter these out a little bit. So if you wanted something that was warm, for example, then I just add a warm selection filter, and I could see all of the ones that would actually fit that selection. And I can sort of add multiple filters. If I want to get rid of a filter, we can just hit X on that. But actually that one's looking kind of nice. It's giving me a nice sort of afternoon sun sort of look. So I kind of like that. So we'll go with that for now. So I hit load on that, and then that just brings up that preset directly into the interface for me. Now, once we've got that, obviously we can start to change that up as you would expect. We can change that in a couple of different ways. We can either start to use the sliders here to interactively sort of work with this directly within the Resolve interface. But with the lens flare, we've also got the ability to go in and edit the lens. So instead of having a huge sort of drop down where you sort of just see your element, you change the change the parameters on that particular element. Instead, what you can do is you can now look down the whole of the list of the preset lens flare we've got and decide which bits are good for you. So as you see here, as I go over the individual selections, you can see the outline of that lens flare. So it means that if I don't want the spots here, I can see what those spots are doing. I can then turn those spots off, and that will take them away. Well, that's my hotspot. I turn my hotspot on again, and it will sort of give me a little brief flash. Hopefully you saw that. And that will just sort of highlight where that element is. And I can just actually select any one of these elements here, and it will give me a little bit of a flash just to show me where it is in the layout. Because once you're working with these quite complex lens flares, it can be quite tricky to sort of keep an eye on where everything actually is. So just being able to sort of have this little yoo-hoo, here I am sort of thing is a really huge help. So when it comes to any of the individual elements, something like the spot up here, if I have that selected, I can always go on the right-hand side now and actually change the parameters for this particular element. So I wanted to change the color a little bit, maybe make it a little bit sort of cooler, sort of a sort of cyan. I can absolutely do that. The same with the hotspot there. I can come in and change the color up a little bit, make that a little bit cooler looking. Maybe green or towards the yellow green there. There we go. I can even add elements if I want to. Say, for example, I wanted to add a little chroma flare or a chroma ring. I can do that. And now this will give me the, there we go. It's give me all the properties that I can use on the chroma ring. I can even drag it up and down on the order. It's actually quite tricky to see where it is at the moment. So we can just sort of change that up a little bit, identify that, or even we can just solo that selection as well. So we can see exactly where that chroma ring happens to be sitting. Unfortunately, it's sitting just outside where we want it to. There we go. So we'll bring that size back a little bit there. Take the brightness down. So we can work on an individual element here. So this gives us a huge amount of flexibility to sort of come in and actually customize those elements. So once we're finished with that, we can just see how it's sitting within the flare itself. And if I'm happy with that, just hit OK. And then we can see how that's working with the element there as well. There we go. So we can see that's fitting in quite nicely. And if I just play that back, there we go. We're getting some good speeds on that as well. There we go. Lovely. Cool. So we don't have to just use the silhouette effects. Silhouette, goodness me, sapphire effects. Brain's gone a little bit there. Yeah, we don't have to use the sapphire effects in the color room at all. We can actually use sapphire directly in the edit room as well. So I turn off my media pool back in the edit room and come to my effects library and look towards the left hand. We can see the open effects here, and they're broken into filters, transitions, and generators. Now, a filter is sort of like what we've been seeing up till now. So it's just been an individual effect applied to a clip, and this works at a sort of earlier in the pipeline than the effects working in the color room. If I open up my inspector over here, have this one selected, you can see that actually it doesn't tell me I've got an effect on this one at all, because the effect isn't applied in the edit It's actually applied later in the process in the color room here. So if I was to apply, let's actually come to our filter and come down here, and we'll do, bring this over here maybe, and do something like, actually just something so we can see, just apply another lens flare over the top of this one. You can see on this, now we've got this one selected, we've got a new tab up in the top right hand corner for open effects, and this is showing us our open effect controls. And again, as we had before, we can load a preset, save our presets out, or just move our effect up and trash it. Now, when it comes to filters, you know, they're working in a sort of very straightforward way. We also have these things called generators, and generators look like the same filter, so they've got the same names, except for one big difference. And we'll choose something which is easy to see, which is going to be my light leak. Now, if I take a generator, I can actually drag that directly onto the timeline. So I've got my black and white footage here. I'm just going to stick a little light leak over the top just to add a tiny bit of interest to it. So now I have my generator here. I can give it a name if I really want to. I can call this one leaks, and that will replace the default name on the timeline. I can change the composite mode, so change that to something like screen or add if I want to get that sort of moving over, so we can treat this as a regular clip. But we can also treat this as a regular Sapphire plugin. So we've still got those same options. We've still got the presets that we can have a look at and sort of see which ones we want to use. So we can take a look, maybe something, I could play this back in the viewer. Just show you that there. Or maybe a hot pink. It's looking a little bit too hot for me. So let's, instead of the hot pink, let's go with a subtle but fast edge blob. There we go. So let's load that in, and that will update immediately. And at this point, I can now come in and obviously change stuff up. So I've wanted that to be a bit more of a visible color. Easy to do. I can scale my lights up to actually make those lights brighter. I can offset the darks so that it makes the black floor a little bit darker as well. So we're only getting sort of like, we're getting fewer of those leaks coming in. And we can do a huge shift just to swap the hues around. There we go. And obviously change things like speed and motion. So we can add a bit of randomness to this as well. But the generators are really useful to use when we have things like we've got clouds and gradients. We've also got, actually, let's show you this one before we move quickly on. It's actually really cool. It's a night sky. So if you're doing sort of night shots and you want to sort of make a bit more interest in your scene, you can do a sky replacement just with a night sky here, and the night sky will actually give you the right location depending on your latitude and longitude and your time as well. So you can get the proper constellations that you would be seeing at that particular time of year. So if you want to have a look at Aquarius, look at Aquarius there. The Plough, or Big Dipper, as Americans would say. So you've got those there right for you, and that's kind of cool. That's pretty useful where occasions where it's actually quite tricky to have a well lit night sky, or a not so well lit night sky, and also be able to see your actors. So being able to have a bit of sky replacement for nighttime is actually quite useful. And if you want to go really heavy on that, let's get rid of my light leaks for a second. Just delete that. Bring that down there. If you really want to go full in with a night sky, you can also add a moon in there as well with the S Lunar, and we can change the phase of the moon. Blooming gorgeous, that. But we're not here. We're not here to mess around with moons, unfortunately. We are here to see just some of the stuff that Sapphire can do for you.
Hey Ben, do you mind if I jump in for a second?
Absolutely.
Hey, great job so far. Thanks so much. Loving all the pretty effects you're showing. I just wanted to answer some of the questions that have been coming up in the chat. You know, just so everyone knows, all Sapphire effects are GPU accelerated. They are CUDA accelerated only. So if you have a nice NVIDIA card, you'll definitely see some speed improvements there. Also, the builder does work in Resolve. Ben's going to show that coming up in a little bit. And what other some of the questions we have? You know, we're not showing anything really VR based today. Sapphire is really, you know, a set of 2D effect filters. That being said, we do have VR filters coming out in the next version of Continuum, and we have Mocha VR. If anyone's interested in VR, but keep the questions coming on the chat room, and I'll continue to answer them. So great. All right, Ben, that's it. No more interruptions.
No worries. No worries at all. Well, someone asked for the builder, so let's have a look at builder, shall we? Now, for those of you who haven't used Sapphire before, the builder is actually, it's a very, very interesting filter, because the builder is sort of not just one filter. Here we have a look at the Sapphire builder. We've got S effect and S transition. Now, the builder effect, let's just put this over the top and go here. And we have a look at the parameters. Well, the parameters are absolutely blank right now, because what the builder allows you to do is it actually allows you to do a few different things. One of the things it allows you to do is it allows you to sort of build up different effects within one interface. So if we have a look at the edit effect here, we actually go into another node-based system where we've got actually all of our effects sort of just on the left-hand side here. So if I want something like, well, we'll take our lunar again, just to have a little look there. I can just drag that in into my tree, and I've now got the lunar effect applied straight there. And then if I wanted to do something else with it, let's like stick some streaks over the top and bring that down. There we go. So you can start to build up a number of different effects very quickly just within the interface. Now this isn't looking very nice, so we're going to get rid of that for a second, because one of the other things that we can use with Builder is actually let's have a look at the presets again. I keep going back to the presets, and the reason for that is that no matter what the effect, the presets are one of the best places to start to sort of learn an effect and see what it can actually do. And when it comes to Builder, you've got a number of different options. You can actually look at each of the individual effects as we're seeing here, and sort of dive in. Let's have a look at the cloud vortex. You can sort of dive in and sort of choose one of the other little presets you've got for an individual effect. But we've also got another tab which is called Builder Effects. And what these are is it's a preset based not just on one single filter, but based on building up a number of effects. So in this example, what I want to do is I want to make a sort of quick animated background. You know, this is something that you wouldn't have thought of using Resolve for before, because it wasn't really sort of built that way. So you know, you sort of pop out into another application to build up your animated background, then render it out and bring it back in. But when you've got Sapphire installed, you've got the builder here, we've actually got if I have a look at my builder effect and go to selections, let's add a little filter in here, I can have a look at background. And we actually have a number of different animated backgrounds, made for us already. So we've got the award bouquet background, which is looking all right. Looks actually really nice. So we can sort of load that in and work with that. And we've got that straight away. We don't have to fiddle about with it at all. But if we wanted to, we actually can, because all of a sudden now in our parameters in the top right hand corner, we actually have the interesting parameters that the designer who actually saved this preset out said that, okay, well, these individual elements, these individual properties are going to be interesting for you to sort of play around with and have a little look at and adjust later on in the day. So I'll make those really easy to come in and fiddle about with. So we can do that really simply. So you can sort of make it your own in a very, very easy way. And with this bouquet one, actually just by changing up the seed, changing up that little random seed there, all of a sudden you've made your own sort of unique background there. But I actually want to do something a little bit different with this. Let's sort of trash that one and actually just come in and come into my edit effect one more time. And I want to show you another way that we can actually work with the builder to start building some stuff up. So I do want to start with something that's sort of quite well, sort of a nice, interesting generated background anyway. And I'm going to have a look at sparkles. So if I add sparkles in there and just hit play, we've got some lovely sparkles going on. Beautiful. Not quite what we're after, to be fair, but it's an interesting starting point. So again, load up my presets, and we'll choose this one here, Behind the Champagne Curtain. Let's load that in. And that immediately updates for us. And it's at this point that we can start to come in and actually play around and adjust these up a little bit. So I don't really want these sort of diagonal sparkle bits. So I can come down into my size details and just turn those off there. And sort of just brightness details, I can turn the brightness of the diagonals off as well. There we go. Cool. And let's bring that up a little bit and adjust the colors a wee bit as well, and take the brightness on the on the X down as well. So now we've just got this sort of fast moving little background. And it's a little bit too fast moving for me for what I want to do. So again, we can just come down and very easily see the sparkle speed X is set to 0.056. So I'm just going to take that down a little touch, maybe take that to 0.02, 0.02. There we go. Something around about there. And add in, if I wanted to that's sort of calmed it down a little bit. Well, let's bring this down a little bit more. Get it nice and calm. But I can also add a little bit of a shift to it as well, so it looks like it's sort of panning over a little bit. And let's change that with the speed X. So if I bring that up quite high, it's going a little bit too fast for me. But there you could start to see that working. So we do have a little bit of motion going on in our background, but not too much that it's going to be distracting. Now, if we take a little look back on the left-hand side and just have a look at some of the stuff, some of the other little effects that we've got, as you can see, as I just sort of pan down these, you can see there's quite a lot to actually look at, and we can use all of these or just one of them within the builder. So if I want to add a little bit more sort of structure to this, I'm actually going to come back into my lighting and do something like, let's have a look, let's do like a raise here. So a raise effect, if we sort of just bring that out a little bit, you'll all sort of recognize a light raise going in. Very, very popular effect. I'm not going to use it like a light raise. I'm actually going to change the mode here. Instead of light rays, I'm going to choose dark rays. And what this is going to do now is instead of just blowing out the brightest areas, it's going to blow out the, or sort of work with the darkest areas. So let's put my X now to 0 and bring the Y all the way up a little bit. And so what I'm doing here, if I disable this particular node down at the bottom by doing Control or Command D, what I'm doing with the rays, with the dark rays now, is instead of making everything bright and sort of explosive, is actually just dampening down that effect just a wee bit. You see the difference there. So it's actually looking at some of these effects and sort of applying them. You sort of, at one point, like you can immediately get a grip and get an idea of what some of these effects are doing. Just go, oh yeah, no, I understand this effect. It's a blah, blah, blah. But actually, as you start to work with it just a little bit more, you can actually start to play around and figure out some other interesting stuff that these effects can actually do. So just to finish off this quick one here, I'm a big fan of glows. Everyone loves a good glow. So I'm going to just finish this off with a little bit of a glow. I'm not going to do too much more on the glow. Let's just keep the threshold around about where it was, but bring the width up quite high and take the brightness down. So I don't really need to play around too much with that. Now, I happen to know that I might want to change this at some point. This might look really cool in the builder right now, but when we see it in context, this might actually not be the exact effect that I'm after. So I want to sort of give myself a bit of flexibility for when I move back into the Resolve interface without having to come back and forth between Resolve and Builder. So what I can do, if we have a look now, if I'm just going to select the Sparkles node and just go to my parameters again. What I can do, if we have a look on the right-hand side here and turn all of these off, just with that little check mark up there, what this check mark allows us to do is it allows us to control which of the parameters we see when we look at it in the Resolve UI. Now, the great thing about doing it this way, let's turn all of these off in the rays as well, and maybe just change the center point and the raise length. So those are the only two that are going to be selected. And we'll do the same on the glow, turn everything off, but only have a look at the brightness, the threshold, and the glow width. And the great thing about this is when I hit OK now, I look at how this is working in context. I'm going, okay, I can sort of see how that's working out. But if we look at the parameters over here, I can now change this up very, very quickly and very, very easily, so that it actually affects what I can actually create the effect that I want to do in context without actually having to go back in. So I'll boost the brightness here, without going back in and sort of just trying to sort of delve down in the hundreds of parameters I've got available to me. I can just sort of isolate out the ones that are going to be interesting to work with in a particular context. Let's just play that through. There we go. So we've built up our nice little effect here. Now, of course, we don't have to just use Builder in the edit window. We can do all of this stuff back in color as well. So back in the color room, and we've got our little effect already applied. So let's have a look at the before effect and the after. before and after. Now, one of the things that I struggle a lot of the time to achieve is to try and do a lot of sky enhancements. So boring skies are absolutely horrible, and they're everywhere. Especially if you live in Northern Europe, you don't get the sort of beautiful sky vistas that you might get if you are in Arizona. I do regret not taking many more sky pictures when I was in Arizona to add into my library. So now I have to try and deal with boring Northern European skies wherever I get them. So one of the things that I like to do is to save myself a little bit of time. Let's have a look at this effect. I've got an S effect in here. This is a very straightforward effect that is just creating a little bit of a gradient on our sky and adding a little bit of glow to the rest of the image. Now, this is just sort of a case in point to show you how we can start working with different operations and different nodes to sort of build up and reuse and recycle alpha channels. So in the builder, I'm going to come down to the bottom left here and just turn on preview selected node. So we can start to step through this and just see what we've got going on. So my source is here. It's looking like it is. We've got a sort of lovely boring sky, and I want to change that up. So I've got a very straightforward gradient I've applied to it with a little start color, which is a sort of cyan, and end color, which is white. So now bringing those together, I'm going to use a math ops. So this is sort of the equivalent of a layer mixer in Resolve. So this is just applying source A over the top of source B using a multiply. Very easy, very straightforward. Coming down, I've now got a glow applied across the entire image. We can see it's applied across the entire image because I've also got a little tint here just to show you. Oh, excuse me, I just need to cough 1 second. Yeah, we can see we've got we're applying it across the entire image because I've tinted this a lovely green to show you. So let's turn my tint back off again. There we go. So I just want to glow the bits of the image that aren't the sky. And to do that, I'm going to create a very simple mask out of my gradient. And I'm going to do that just by using a monochrome effect over the top, basically create a sort of high contrast mask here. So we've got black at the top, white at the bottom. There we go. So we can sort of change the weighting on that as well to sort of choose how much of an overlap we have between the two colors. And now we're coming in to my matte ops comp. So the composite using the Luma key. So we feed the monochrome into the matte. We have our foreground, we have our background, and that's being composited using the matte here. Now, the reason I've done it this way is it means that when I adjust anything on my gradient here, everything else sort of trickles down in the same way. So I don't have to adjust multiple different parameters. I can just come in and use this time and time again on different footage, and I just have to change one parameter. And let's see how that works. So turn my tint on and come down to my matte ops comp here. I'm going to turn off preview selected node because I want to come into my gradient now. And I want to show you that just by changing up where the gradient ends, I can also change where the glow and the rest of the filters that are going on down here are going to end. So let's turn the tint back off again. hit OK on that. And so now we've got our sort of quite straightforward gradient going over the top, making a slightly more interesting sky. So choosing that logic or following that logic forward, I'm going to copy this node with Control or Command C and move to our next clip. And I'm just going to paste this node in with Control or Command V. Now, obviously, this is a different shot. So luckily, in the builder, what I did when it came to the gradient, I set it up so that only a few of the parameters would be visible. So only interesting things that I might want to change, like the gradient size or maybe some of the glow as well, only those are visible in the parameters here. So it means that I can come in and I can change my my sky up a little bit. So we can change the hue on the sky to match the natural hue on the rest of the clip. I can easily change where the endpoint is. So I can bring that down a little bit. That's maybe moved it a bit too far down. There we go, 3, 5, there we are. And because of the way that this is working, obviously everything else that's going downstream is also only affecting this bottom area of the image as well. So if I wanted to change the glow on that for any reason, I'm choosing glow because it's something that's easy to actually be seen. So you can see that the glow is now only affecting the bottom area of the image there. Cool. Now we've got actually quite a lot of stuff that I still need to go through, but I can already see that we're not going to have time for it all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look now at the transition, the builder transition, and then if we've got time, we'll come back and have a look at some of the other stuff. So back in the edit window, edit room, having a look at our effects library again, we can come in and see under the builder category, we've got S effect, which applies our builder as an effect, but we've also got S transition, which is very, very cool. And this is going to apply our, actually, let's come into our transitions. Thank you very much, Ben. Yeah, this is going to, yes, we've got a whole number of different transitions that we can just drag and drop over the top here. But the one that we're really interested in, the one that we're really interested in is S transition. And let's drag that over the top here. And what S transition is its builder for transitions. Sounds simple. It's actually very, very cool indeed. Again, let's have a look at some of the presets, just see what some of the stuff we've got. So we can do things like, you know, your sort of standard kind of blurs, vertical flashes, whip pan effects. Obviously, this works a little bit better if we've got a shorter transition time. So let's bring that in there. Let's play that over the top. Whoosh. And we can also come in, let's load another preset in here. We've also got some stuff that is a little bit trickier as well, or a little bit more. Let's come into our builder effects and search our preset, and I'll have a look at something that's a bit scrambly. The strip scramble, let's load that in. That's coming in, it's loading in lots of strips and looking mighty fun while doing it. Let's have a look at editing that strip scramble. I have to move over to my mouse now, and you can see this is quite a big tree we've got available to us right there, or quite a big tree that that it's working with to do this particular preset. Now, let's build up our own preset, or let's build up our own filter that actually doesn't look anywhere near as intimidating as that particular preset. So let's get rid of that there. Let's bring this one over the top. There we go. Let's make this a little bit shorter. 14 frames, lovely. Okay, and let's edit this effect here. Now, when we're working with the transition, the builder transition, we're always working from a point of a sort of default transition. We can do sort of actually choose any of the transitions that we have as starting off place. So it's going to bring in a dissolve as default, but we can do dissolve blurs, tile, static. We've got wipes, a whole load of wipes. We've also got things like card flips. But I'm going to start with what will I start with? Let's start with a Swish 3D, shall we? There we go. So just playing that through, you can see it's a fairly sort of straightforward little effect. It's pushing the from. Have a look at we've got two sources. We've got a from and a to. And it's pushing our from forwards and scaling it up and taking it out, and then scaling our to up from smaller and pushing out as well. So let's change that up a little bit. I'm going to turn off the motion blur just for a second so we can see this a little bit easier. And all I really want to do is come down to sort of around about 2/3 of the way down, where it says relative amp from and relative amp to, amplitude to and from. Now these are saying 1 and -1, and what that's doing is it's saying it's choosing this distance up the top. So we've got our Z distance, which is 0.5. It's saying that our from is going to be doing this value, which at the moment is 2, and our to is going to be doing the opposite value, which is why we've got this sort of effect happening here. So if I set both my to and froms to the same value and set this Z distance to a value that is before 1 or below 1, we get a little bump. There we go. So we're going to zoom in and zoom out. Let's add a little bit of motion blur to that. There we go. So that's starting to bump up a little bit. Let's just hit OK on that, so we can see what's actually happening. There we go. So it's just bumping that up and out. Let's edit our effect again, and I think we can make this a little bit more interesting. So what I'm going to do now is actually add some stuff before it comes into the transition. So this is where it can start getting a little bit more fun. So I'm going to add a directional blur, and I'm just going to again preview that selected node just so we can see what it's doing. And you can see this is already animating in and out. Let's have a look. Let's turn the blur amount up a little bit so we can see what that's doing. And that's already animating in and out, and we haven't even done anything. So what's going on here? If we have a little look over in the top right-hand corner now, under the blur amount, you can see next to the value, we actually have this little keyframe thing, so our animation graph turning on. And because we're using this as a part of a transition, Sapphire's smart enough to know that actually we probably want this one transitioning in and out. So we can see the curve that we have here. It's starting at 0, popping up to our value, and then popping down to 0 again. And if it's going a bit too slowly, we can always change the end time so that it finishes a lot faster. You can see that popping in. And if it's looking a little bit too linear, we can even come in and change the slow in, slow out, so we have a sort of easing effect on that there. So that's looking all right. Let's come in now and let's just swap our angle up just a little bit. Let's take this blur angle around about -30. And I want to also come in and shift out RG and B. So we get this sort of like chroma distortion going on as well. I kind of like that. There we go. Cool. So now I've got that on the from. Let's do something else on the to. So what I'm going to do is I'll right click on this one here and let's just duplicate that directional blur. And I've got this as a sort of node all by itself. And let's just slot that into the to and very, very quickly come in and just make a couple of little changes. So let's just change the angle up here. And I'm also going to change the animation on this one. So instead of having it starting at the same time, I'm going to come in and change the end time so it's right at the end. There we go. And change the start time so it's round about in the middle somewhere. So it's not doing anything until the end where it's just sort of popping in. So now if we see this in context, we get this sort of like blur pop as well with the chroma stuff as it's also sort of transitioning in and out as well. So that's cool as far as it goes. But let's add another couple of little things very quickly right at the bottom here, because this is really interesting. Is within our transition, we've got a sort of main transition here, but we can also add in other transitions here as well. So if I've got a wipe line, bring that in. It's got that same from and to. So I can have this coming in as my from over there, and let's just plug, actually let's plug the from coming in as our source, and I'll have our result of our transition coming in as the to. So now that's sort of playing in a little bit like that. So we get a little sort of sweep coming in. Let's change the edge softness up here. So it's sweeping through as well as transitioning in. And actually, let's build up another little white line in there as well, and have our to popping in at the end. So we've got our unaffected going to our affected. Now, obviously, if I play that back, you can maybe, if you're very, very observant, see what's happening right in the middle there. But that's the only thing that's happening. And the reason for that is obviously our wipe amount is happening at the same time on both of the images. So I'm going to bring my end time in to roundabout into the middle on the first wipe line, and on the wipe amount over here, let's bring the animation in over here and just set that start time roundabout the middle there. So now we've got this sort of warp effect going on in the middle, sort of warping in and over. And if I want to save this transition out, if I like this transition so much, I'm going to save it out forever. I can just hit Save Preset or Control or Command S. I can give it a name. I'll call this one Ben's Funky Wipe. Something nice and obviously nice and descriptive. Give it my name, Ben Brownlee, if I can ever spell my name properly. And give this a sort of a more sort of fully featured description in here as well. What I can also do is, you saw and you remember how we sort of were able to filter the effects from before. Well, the reason we were able to do that is because we actually had characteristics that we could say and sort of search on. So I can now add this saying blurred, maybe something like energetic, glassy. And if I want to add new characteristics as well, I can add that in there and add in new tags onto this preset. And I can even set it as a favorite as well. Now, the cool thing is I can save this just to my system, or I can export this preset to a file. And this is then available in anyone's builder. If you send this file out onto your network, send it by email, and whether they're working in Sapphire, for in Resolve, in Avid, in Adobe, they can all use these same builder effects. And that's something that's really, really useful if you're working in a team. You can have a lot of sharing going around between not just different people, but between different systems and different software as well. And it's the same preset that we will export out to that file. So if I hit OK on that, we'll see how that works in context. And that's looking kind of fun. And I like that. Now, unfortunately, we have run out of time. So I'm going to hand you back over to Brian now. But yeah, if you've got any questions, then just keep typing it away here. And we'll see you when you've spoken with Brian.